800 collection centers, maybe a decade ago, Dr. Lal Path Labs has nearly 5,000 centers as the year ended, making them unequivocally the largest diagnostic chain in the country. At a point of time when the debate around the growth in the sector, which is actually a fairly nascent sector, rages on, it is our absolute pleasure to welcome one of the pioneers of this industry, Dr. Arvind Lal, Padma Shri Dr. Arvind Lal, to talk about how does he see the current landscape from his vantage point. Dr. Lal, great having you. Thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to us.
Thanks, Neeraj, for getting me over.
No, the pleasure is ours. Sir, the starting point is that we've seen, maybe because of a base of COVID being there in the preceding years leading to this impairment, or in your case, even last quarter, the numbers were single-digit growth and leading people to question about the pace of growth and the runway for growth for the diagnostic chains in the country. How do you view this?
So in my point of view, the quarter-on-quarter growth or the matrix is not the right gauge because last year we still had a lot of COVID. So a more accurate measure would be the performance, to be gauged from an overall growth of this year. And if you look at the growth sequentially, so it is now coming in line with the pre-COVID levels. And our CAGR over the last few years or 4 years has been around 11%. It's okay, which is now returning back, I think, to normal. And as far as we are concerned, the Delhi NCR is a huge market for us. We started from here. We are the best here. And but that doesn't mean that we are not well presented in the other areas. So we are the largest diagnostic chain. We have very good presence in the rest of North, in the central India, in the eastern India, and now in western India. So I think we are trudging along quite peacefully. And the COVID days now are over, which actually skewed the whole kind of thing. Well, pandemic is pandemic, and you have got to leave everything behind and just concentrate on COVID. And thankfully, it's all over now.
Yeah. So by the way, just for bookkeeping's sake, you reckon the base effect of COVID will probably be lasting only for the next 3 odd months, or let's say till Q4, and then FY24 onwards, there'll be normalcy as far as the base effect of COVID goes?
I think the normalcy has returned more or less, but given the nature of the pandemic, somebody comes from, say, China, or somebody comes from another infected area, so that skews the curve a little bit. But by and large, I would say 95%, I think COVID has settled down. I'm not at all saying that that there are no cases of COVID anywhere, but the kind of testing and the kind of action which we saw during COVID days, hopefully never get to see that again. So that is fast disappearing now.
Got it. Sir, I would love to ask this to you. When I looked at, so I want to talk about first the slightly near term and then the actual larger term. When I look at your Q3 numbers and I strip off the COVID effect of the preceding quarter and look at the non-COVID numbers, you grew at single digits. A lot of people are talking about, or a few people are talking about, your large presence in North India becoming a factor that works against you when it comes to growing at a rapid pace as well. And of course, you are large there, you're expanding in other areas too. How do you respond to such a point?
So what I feel is that, yes, because the base in North India has always been bigger, much larger than the rest of India. So therefore, the comparison is slightly skewed. I agree with you that we, will not be, or we don't grow that much in our main territory, which is Delhi NCR, as much as we would be probably growing in the rest of North, or in East India, or in West India for that matter now. But the fact of the matter is that, yes, COVID had put a dampener, And I think now, as you yourself have correctly gauged, that now the numbers are coming back to normal, and our CAGR in the last 4 years has been around 11%. So I would say that I'm looking at the present and the future quite optimistically.
How can I ask you to define this optimism, Dr. Lal? Also, because the degrees of optimism versus pessimism that some people have around this industry, and again, organized must be what, 15, 16, or 20% at best of the current diagnostic industry in the country as well. So it's too young an industry to become cautious about the growth rates. And yet there are some learned people who are turning cautious. So tell us, how do you see the industry from your eyes for the next 3, 5, 7 years? And how do you see your growth rates now that COVID is behind us, the normal growth rates for your company, both in terms of centers and in terms of numbers for the next few years?
So the numbers are returning fast, as you can see from our latest, board meetings and the things which we have, given to everybody. So the India is growing now. There has been a massive disruption of diagnostics growth in India thanks to COVID. Now that effect has to wean off completely. And India is riddled, as you know, with the other kind of diseases, NCDs, non-communicable diseases, or chronic diseases or lifestyle diseases, in which we have 65% of our population afflicted who are actually dying from these things. So these are the diseases which were actually, center stage, in which we all were involved. All these patients, had suffered. I cannot tell you the degree of suffering of the other patients who were neglected during COVID. The cancer patients could not come for their regular tests. The nephrology patients, for the transplanted patients or patients going in for dialysis, etc. Those people, the cardiac patients, and liver, kidney. So everything has taken a backside. So all I'm saying is that now, because of the large number of these NCDs still prevailing, the numbers are definitely coming back. Now, when they come back in this first quarter of the next year or subsequent, I cannot really say. But I'm absolutely optimistic that things now are happening quite okay.
And you reckon the runway is still long, or is this industry now a 10, 11% growth industry for the foreseeable future?
Again, that those are the market market will decide whether it is 10, 11. Well, I would reckon that it will be better than that, and it will be a long way to go, Neeraj. The fact is that 1.4 billion Indians have to be tested, and one Dr. Lal Path Labs or one somebody else, etc., is, I think, not the correct way to service these kind of people. And even the government, as you have seen, that is coming up. We'd like it to make it happen faster. But I think now the time has come for the industry maturation, which means that you will hear about more people. You will hear people like us also spreading our wings into the tier 3, tier 4 towns, rural areas, etc. And also getting into areas where we were not so well represented earlier. As you know that suburban was a very good thing for us, and we have been able to integrate with suburban completely. Though the name we have definitely kept us, we will not change the name because it is known there.
Yes,
it is the fact of the matter is that we have now inaugurated a suburban reference lab in January. So obviously things are moving absolutely in the right direction. And suburban diagnostics used to send or outsource the samples elsewhere. Now the reverse is happening. People are sending them the samples. So here is, a classic case where, active intervention of both the parties has now resulted in something which is much better for the patient. And the patients are going to you are going to go inwards, towards the bottom of the pyramid, as you would define it, into, smaller areas. So that's the way I look at it.
So, sir, I'm just trying to understand, are you being cautious, or are you, when you say you are present in North India as a leader, the other markets you are expanding into tier 3, tier 4, there is suburban that has been added here. More tests are coming in. There are specialized high-end tests out there as well. And yet I hear you say that you will grow at 10, 11%. Why is that? Is it cautious optimism? Is it caution, or is it actually a realistic thing and I shouldn't expect too much more?
See, again, as I said a few moments earlier, I wouldn't know if 15%, mid-teens, as you say, is the ideal growth rate, or 20% or 10%. But I think the industry has come of age. So wherever we are, where we were in very large numbers, etc., that may show you a slightly lesser amount of increase. But in the other areas, I have absolutely no hesitation in saying, take Maharashtra for example. Between suburban and us, well, we are running now 50 labs in the whole of Maharashtra, 28 itself in Mumbai, hundreds of collection centers. So if this is not more penetration, what? So this is exactly what we have to do to get closer to the patient and test them as best as we could to service them better. So
Got it.
that's the way I look at it. That if we can give better service by whatever means, like the whole of India, I think, was mobilized during COVID. So hopefully we will be able to keep our job as doctors is also to keep the population, absolutely fit and fine. Which again, don't get me wrong. So they have to have the proper test done or available, the preventive, the wellness test, all done at a correct time. The number of people afflicted with these chronic diseases or NCDs is a very large indeed, much more than anybody can actually visualize.
Got it, sir. Thank you. Thank you for that insight. Okay, let me try and change tax and a couple of other questions. There is, I heard you mention that this now industry is reaching a stage of maturity, because now, at least in urban centers, diagnostic labs are present far and wide. But there is also this beast of the new digital challengers which are coming to the fore. And some would argue that these are new companies, but the brands that back them make it seem that they are not fly-by-night operators. They are companies or brands with serious presence, serious intent, and serious money to back their plans. Would you believe that competitive intensity will be very high in the next few quarters/years, Dr. Lal?
Well, the answer is, somewhat, mixed, as I just told you, that in order to service the number of people in India, and it is during the days of the ambassador and the Fiat cars, that at that point of time, when somebody asked one of the manufacturers, and what do you think is the market? And somebody came out with a, number like 40,000 per year. But now one company itself is making, I think, 500,000 cars, etc. So I think it is the question of the maturity of the industry. There were not many people, players like us, many more, of course, who had the capacity of, tapping the untapped. And pathology is one that if you do not take care of this kind of testing, which is the front line, even during COVID, it was test, track, and treat. So right now, if you have to get hold of the NCDs, let's talk about NCDs for a moment more, because if you do not control these kind of diseases, even our own GDP, Indian GDP, can suffer as much as 2%. It's our job, it is the country's job, it is the government's job and the private sector's job to keep our people fit and fine. And how do you keep them fit and fine? You need every day that a guy, went to the, his sports teacher, and he was practicing there, he was doing weights, he was doing all sorts of things, and he suddenly collapsed. So our job is to find out the hidden thing. As they say, it's the iceberg phenomenon. What you see is only 1/8, 7/8 is below. And that is what is happening. diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiac patients, cancers, etc. So how do you tackle them? So the main thing which you have to keep in mind is that people have to get more aware of testing. And I welcome the so-called bigger players, etc. So they will, and again, water will find its own level. I mean, who are you and me to even speculate on that? I mean, if you could give service, people will come, and the job is not on the top line or bottom line. Job is to get India up on its feet again.
Got it. Okay, my final question, sir. From very humble beginnings, you've grown into this mammoth company doing all that it is doing. Where do you see yourself in terms of the size of the operations 2, 3, 5 years out from where you are right now?
Neeraj, we tested 2.75 crores last year. I would say at last year figure I don't have, but maybe, so 2.75 crores, which also means that we can test more than 100,000 patients a day. Somewhat, if you
sure.
So the idea is that, yes, with our constant endeavor of reaching people, tier 3, tier 4 areas, rural areas, and also expanding our presence in the areas where we were not. For example, in Maharashtra earlier, etc., and then the south. So the aim is to take this number multifold. Now, I don't know if it will become 2 lakh patients a day or 3 lakh patients a day, but it will definitely grow in lakhs. And if you look at it from a distant point of view, from 36,000 feet, as they say, well, there is hardly any testing happening in India. You compare us or Indians being tested, for the normal kind of thing, cholesterol, lipid profiles, diabetes, etc., and compare it to another, slightly better Western country, which is better off than us. So you will see the difference. So in spite of all that, you still are at a loss how to control it. But first of all, let us know the size of the problem. India is known as the diabetic capital of the world. If diabetic of the world, is there, then what about high blood pressure, which is doubly more prevalent? And then there's a deadly combination of both. So the things are not exactly, so, packed in silos that, okay, this chap has come, those people have come, etc. The idea is that the whole psyche of India has to change into getting themselves tested. And at our level, we always tell our patients that when we find something wrong with you, it is reversible. Rather than going into chronicity and then it's a one-way street, then now you need dialysis, now you need a kidney transplant. But, for example, if diabetes can be controlled and have a tight control over diabetes, there is no reason why the patient should go in for, kidney disease or later on diabetic retinopathy or something else for that matter. So I think that the problem has to be, seen in a medical kind of a, texture, rather than, a company coming in and establishing itself, etc., etc. Yes, that will happen. And by the way, it was not, again, your and my creation, but the best revenues, even in a good hospital, were coming from the pathology lab. So those people now have come out into the retail kind of a space, and it's a good thing. At least they know they're coming from a background where they've seen the worst.
Sure.
So somebody will be able to reverse that change, and of course, in the bargain, somebody will do better, somebody will not do so well, etc. That's part of life.
Lovely talking to you, sir. Thank you so much for all the help during the COVID period and continuously over the course of the next few years, I'm sure. And it was just a delight talking to you today. Thank you so much for taking the time out.
Thank you, Neeraj. Thanks very much.